We're back to the Runnin' Rams Basketball Hour with Coach Jim Barron, presented by Rhode Joe's Saloon, legendary food and drink, and 920 WHJJ.
Marquise inbounds, shot from the corner by Akeem, no good, tipped up by West. Jamal Wilson puts it home, and Rhode wins it. Rhode has won. Jamal Wilson on the offensive tip-in on the weak side. Rhode beats Charlotte 71-70. The miss by Akeem, the rebound by Jamal, and the buzzer sounds. Rhode wins it.
And that was the finish to the game. I believe Rhode Island won that one. The Rhode Island Rams Basketball Hour here at Rhode Joe's Saloon, legendary food and drink, great deals every night. Find out what's going on right here at Rhode Joe's Saloon by getting on Facebook at facebook.com/Rhode Joe's Saloon. Bill Reynolds from the Providence Journal. You a Facebook guy? Oh, wait a minute. I got to turn your volume up here. We had you down while Coach was on. Try that again. You a Facebook guy?
No.
No? now, the way the business is going, you got to be like at least a blog guy.
I try to avoid these things. I can't avoid all of it, but I try.
You figure you got the stretch run going on, and you can try to get this career done before it gets too serious, right?
Like the next time my Twitter will be the first, I hope.
Oh, man. Bill Reynolds is with us from the Providence Journal. I want to thank Bill for coming here today, taking the time to spend the night with the Rhode fans.
I like the way you whip the crowd up.
That's my job. I get we don't have an applause sign.
Right.
It's the battery operator. The battery's died, so I give it one of these and throw him a couple of sweet potato fries, and the next thing you know, the whole place is roaring. We had
a few chicken wings out there.
You'll see in a while. Well, speaking of the chicken wings, you'll see in a while there'll be a line out the door down the street, and people that go by see the sign that say URI Coaches Show right here at Rhode Joe's, and they must say to themselves, "Wow, those coaches are the most popular people around." It's the 10-cent wings. They on Monday night. See, you won't see it tonight because it's Tuesday now, but every Monday night we do this show. Usually 10-cent wings. I tell you what, I finish the show, I get in line to come back in and take advantage of those. Those things are the greatest things going. Before we talk about URI basketball, I want to mention the rise of a dynasty, the 57 Celtics, the beginning of what is an historic and maybe unprecedented run in all of sports. And Bill, this is your latest book out, and I am in the process of reading it. And I know my partner Don Call has had it for the last two road trips and read the book and loved it. Talk about that experience and maybe what you learned that you didn't know before you got into writing this book that you now know about the Celtic legacy.
Okay, here's the quiz question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how many people know this. 1957 is the start of the Celtics. It's their first banner, first title, NBA title. They played the St. Louis Hawks in the NBA Finals. For the sake of argument, there were 10 people on each team. How many black players in that game?
20 people all told.
20
Let's go to the mob. Our mob is
absolutely.
the student section, the student
black
spirit
players?
section of the University of Rhode Island.
He says 2.
We got a 2 vote. What do you guys think? How many African American players out of the 20 players, say 10 aside, played in that championship in 1957? We're done at 8:30, so you're really going to have to get this done.
It's not multiple choice.
Throw up a finger. Not that one, but any other finger would do, yeah. We got 2. We got a few 3s out there. What's the number?
The number is, and it's right here on the cover, 1. And
1.
Who is it? Who is it? Yeah.
Who's the 1?
Very good.
Bill Russell
Very
is the
good.
1. Sitting there on the cover, and and certainly by asking the question, you would expect it to be a low number, so they didn't even guess low enough.
The whole point of doing a book like this was everybody talks about the banners. And 2 years ago, I'm up there at the Celtics, Lakers, and everybody's about the banners and the 17th banner and all these banners. And I'm looking around at the crowd, and you have to be over 60 years old to even have a clue about really the first game. And no one knows anything about these banners. They talk about the banners. So that was the impetus for it. And it was a very different time. And the book is trying to recreate the era, what Boston was like, what the country was like, what basketball was like, what the Celtics were like.
You know, you've done that in a few of your books, taking sports and also blending it with or juxtaposing it maybe with the society at that time. An interesting way to look at it. Athletics oftentimes looked at in a vacuum,
right.
But you've kind of taken it and putting it back in its place back in that particular era.
I try and find subjects that are going to interest me, and because each book is going to take about a year of your life, and I've made the mistake. If you pick the wrong subject, it's the worst term paper you've done in your life times 10, times 100. So it's, I just think it's, we see the world, a lot of us, through sports. If it's a question of sports don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a larger social context. So the whole point of trying to do a book like this is to place sports in a larger context. And hopefully anybody who reads this learns not only about the Celtics in 1957, but about basketball, about the NBA, about the country. It was a very different place.
The Rise of a Dynasty, 1957 Celtics, the first banner, and the Dawning of a New America as well by Bill Reynolds. And you mentioned that you picked something that interests you. What's the best topic for a book related to sports that hasn't been written?
Oh God.
In other words, what's next?
Well, I think that this is a kind of a local angle. I think somebody, it probably won't be me, but someone who does the Lamar Odom story, I think would be a very interesting book. It's anything that gets beyond the headlines, anything that gets you into what you kind of have what you think you know, but you really don't know. And that's what this book tries to do, and that's kind of what all the books I do, that's the attempt going in, is try and take people into a place where they really don't know. They think they know where they don't.
And we're going to get to URI in 1 second, but one last question. News this morning about Borders closing up a bunch of retail locations. Is that a comment on books as a whole, or just the way people read them with Kindle and
I think it's a comment on everything. It's a comment on kids who essentially don't read the same way maybe kids a generation ago read. It's a comment on the changing technology. It's a comment on kind of the changing way we live in a lot of ways.
In a couple of decades, will bookstores exist?
Probably. Well, not in the same way. I remember when Borders first started 20 years ago, and that was the new thing. There were going to be these superstores with cafes, and the bookstore used to be, as we know, it was a little kind of place that you walked in, there was books. And the Borders of the world tried to make it into an event. And for Borders anyway, that run has ended, basically.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hopefully there are many more great books to come. Congratulations on that one. Talk about URI basketball. Great finish against Charlotte, and this team, throughout the season trying to find themselves a little bit, and they seem to be on a nice roll here at the right time and heading toward that stretch run. Your thoughts on this edition of the URI basketball team?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's a year, from my perspective, that began with some adversity. You had Orion Otterbridge out for the first semester. You had Jamal Wilson out for the first semester. I mean, these were two, in theory, junior players, veteran players, and they were taken away. And I think it's a team that's always been kind of in search of itself a little bit. You had Daniel West, who's now gone. So I don't think it's the easiest year to coach this team. I think they are doing better than to be expected.
I think one of the great stories in this year, not only with URI but really in the Atlantic 10, is the play of Marquise Jones. I think Marquise Jones came in as an unheralded kind of nuts and bolts, he's going to get you through and the other guys will win the games type of guy, and he's had a very solid career, but he's turned into an essential cog on this team. I'm doing a story on him for Sunday's paper. I talked to him last week after one of the games. No, I totally agree. I don't know him, but I have the utmost respect for him as a player. He has come a long way. I think he's a leader. He's tough. Toughness translates into a game. And there was a stretch there where it was him and Delroy against the world a lot of time. Waiting for other guys to kind of fill in around them, and that's not easy for anybody. I think if you asked 100 URI fans at the beginning of the year who would the second leading scorer on this team be, I don't think anybody would pick Marquise Jones. And he plays. We've both seen him evolve as a player. He came in basically as a part-time player, a backup, and now he is, you can tell he's a better shooter. He plays with more confidence. He plays with poise. He has had an amazing year, I think. And I should say, and I know Don Call would agree, he's a wonderfully respectful kid. You said that you had respect for him. And being on the road, sometimes we see these guys in the travels and everything, and he is, as they all are, but really exceptional in that department. He's a class act. He did something that I have never
in my 25 years, 20 years of interviewing college basketball players, and I usually ask them in any kind of extended interview situation, what do they major in? And he said something that no one has ever said to me before. Do you know what it is? What he majors in?
No.
Take a guess.
Well, communications is one
English.
that zips around.
No one majors in English. And I said, why do you major in English? He said, I like to read books. I said, oh my God, this is a first.
Well, Will Martell is going to be on in a little while. He's always got a book on the road.
That's good.
So we're going to be talking about books. I'm going to ask him the last book he read. It better be written by Bill Reynolds, I'll tell you. Delroy James, you mentioned those two together, Marquise and Delroy. Delroy finishing up a great year for Rhode Island as well and a great career. He's the only player in the Atlantic 10 in the top 10 in both points and rebounds in the league, and he has a pro type of body and a pro type of game. How far can Delroy go after this season is over in your eyes, playing professionally?
Well, I think he is certainly going to make money playing basketball, whether it's in the NBA or overseas someplace. I think he's going to make a lot of money, and he has, as you said, Steve, he's had a remarkable year. In the beginning, it was almost him against the world a lot of times.
Sure.
And Jim Barron said it on the call. I mean, teams key on him now. It's not as easy for him. He gets the ball like on the perimeter, and he basically has to beat three guys. Coach Barron said four, but I would say at least two or three. So as the season's going on, I think it's tougher for him. I think he gets a little worn down sometimes, but he's had an amazing year.
Yeah, I think
in
by
his career, I mean, I think he can. One of the great things about covering college basketball is that you see guys get better, and it's a journey. It's not. We make in the media and fans, we make instant evaluations all the time. Guy plays like two exhibition games as a freshman, and everybody thinks they've got him pigeonholed as a player. And yet, it is a continuum, and guys do get better. And I think Delroy has certainly gotten better, and he is There was a thing in one of the preseason basketball magazines where I don't think he was picked on the first five of the preseason A-10.
Yeah, the second team all.
And I wrote this. I said, if there are five guys in the A-10 better than him, I would like to see. I'd like to see them.
Absolutely.
And he is as talented, I think, as anybody in that league, and he's had a great year.
Yeah, and he's somebody. It's not always the best players that project to the next level. It's the type of players that fit the body type and the game and all.
Yes, and it's his thing. I think if he starts to make his perimeter shot more, at the next level, as he shot it more in November, December here, that gives him a better chance. I think that's the only real kink in his game, really. It's the only real kind of chink in the armor, basically, is that the outside shot gets a little erratic sometimes. You
look at surprises, and certainly Nick Milesevic from the beginning of the year, last year, didn't get many minutes at all, and I don't think many of us expected him to come out of the gates the way he did. And we just talked to Jim about the adjustments he's made along the way, and you talk to the coaches, and they say high basketball IQ from Nick Milesevic, and he's made necessary adjustments to make himself a viable member.
I mean, the other day he made one or two big baskets inside, which kind of surprised me, as an observer. So that part of his game, I think, is blossoming now, where in the beginning of the year, you didn't see that.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I saw you over the Prep School Invitational tournament at Keeney Gymnasium, which is great for URI to host that. So many of the top prep schools are right there, and a lot of the prep school kids get exposed to the URI campus, so it's a terrific thing. It brings to the forefront that whole topic of the recruiting process and all. What do you take away from it, from what it was when it was basically high school basketball, and now, but not only the prep schools taking from the high schools, but also the AAU coming in the back door and doing everything in the off season?
Well, I mean, I think any player here would tell you the same thing. It's just a different world than it used to be, and the world is changing dramatically. And it's the prep school phenomena has had a really dramatic effect on high school basketball, not just here in Rhode Island, but New England and also around the country, because there's no comparison between the level of play in the Interscholastic League, for example, and in these prep school circuits. It's a different world. These kids in these kind of basketball prep schools, they're all trying to play in college someplace, and like you can tell. And if you're a college recruiter, that's the place to be. There's no question about it.
It seems like the high school coach has less and less influence over where a kid's going to be going.
The AAU thing changed everything. It used to be, it changed the world. You have, 10-year-old kids playing AAU basketball now. It used to be just the totally few elite players, and now it's everybody. Boys, girls, everything.
What adjustments should be made? How would you change things if you had a chance to change things in that process? Or is that too big a question to answer?
I think it's too big a question. I think the horse flew out of the barn a long time ago.
I can't even see the barn.
The barn's real gone. And the horse is way down the road. And it's, and the NCAA they're always trying to deal with, open time and closed time. But I just think the culture went by them. And I think they're always like about 5 steps behind.
Back to the URI situation, and meaning the stretch run here in the Atlantic 10 tournament, and then beyond that, the A10 as a whole. I think most people look at it and say a little bit of a down year for this league from top to bottom. Your thoughts on how many teams might end up getting NCAA bids from the Atlantic 10 if all plays out clearly according to plan?
Let's get down the list. I think Temple's going to be in the NCAA tournament. I think Richmond's going to be in the NCAA tournament. I think after that it's up for grabs a little bit.
Probably Xavier. Yeah. I would think Temple and Xavier would be the first to win, and Richmond would be next in line.
Right. And after that, who knows? I think it's competitive, as you said. Someone else can come and win the tournament, get the automatic bid, so it kind of shuffles things up. But it's if you look at college basketball across the board, I watch the Big East a lot. There is amazing parity. And obviously a lot of teams are not going to make it, but on a certain night, these teams can beat anybody. Mm-hmm. We see that with Providence, who has beaten Villanova. They've beaten, who else they beat? Louisville.
Right.
And they'll beat somebody else before it's over. And, they're a bottom fish Big East team. So there's tremendous parity, I think, in college basketball. And one of the things gets back to the AAU thing. All these players have played against each other. No one's intimidated anymore. No one is like, just because you go to a bigger school than me, that means you're going to beat me. I think those days are long gone. There's a sameness to it, and it's one of the reasons why the games are close. And
AAU has a lot to do with that, because a lot of these guys have played together, played against each other, played 5 games on a Saturday afternoon. No big deal.
No one's intimidated by anybody anymore. Even said, if you step up in what used to be stepping up in class and being a little bit intimidated, oh my God, we can't play with them. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Kansas #1 in the afternoon, and losing to Kansas State later on that night.
Absolutely.
It's a great world. And then, Bill Reynolds, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Thanks for all the great work that you do in the state of Rhode Island in college basketball, and not only college basketball, but covering sports with the Providence Journal. We appreciate it very much. And we're going to take a break here at Rhode Joe's Saloon. We'll be back in just a bit. It's brought to you by the Belltone Hearing Aid Center's Rams Radio Network. It's Rhode Joe's Saloon, legendary food and drink. Great deals every single night. 10-cent wings on Monday night. Find out what's going on by following them on Facebook at facebook.com/Rhode Joe's Saloon. We got Kevin Clark, assistant coach for the University of Rhode Island, coming up. Will Martell will be here with us as well. Again, thanks to Bill Reynolds and thanks to Jim Barron for being with us in the first half hour of the program. We'll be back in just a bit at Rhode Joe's Saloon.